All right.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. You are tuning to Lovely Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. It's a beautiful day here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And today we have a very special show for you. And it's about Africa. Anytime we come in here, we come and, discuss issues relevant to our development. And having said that, we cannot, forego and then tap on the knowledge and expertise of our brothers and sisters around the globe. But today, I have a special honor to have a discussion on a topic that I'll be giving to you momentarily. But it's a great pleasure to have Dr. Akyaaba Addae Sebo with me here. And this is not the first time he's been on this show. Doc has been contributing tremendously to this show and this program, and to that I thank him for that. Before we go on, I would like to formally introduce Dr. Akyaaba Addae Sebo to our listeners around the globe. The floor is yours. Please tell us who you are.
Oh,
Yes, Doc?
I'm an
Yes.
African who happened to be born in Ghana. And I spent most of my adult life in exile in the US and in the UK. And through that, I was lucky to have come to the notice of key of the 20th century who took me under their wings. This includes C.L.R. James, John Henry Clark, Ben Jekanan, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, Walter Rodney, Kwame Ture, that is formerly Stokely Carmichael, Bob Brown, and others. So I have been very, very, very lucky, and particularly one woman, Mother Jewel Mazik. So I've been very, very blessed and lucky. So all that I know about politics, political economy, and the problems of development and underdevelopment is as a result of the instruction that I got from these illustrious giants of the Pan-African world. I owe a lot to them, and I use every occasion to pay eternal gratitude to them. Basically, by training, I'm a peacemaker, a mediator, and I was instrumental in facilitating an end to the civil wars, first in Liberia and Sierra Leone. I have also been instrumental in the establishment of Black History Month in the United Kingdom. I initiated a process as far back as 1985 when I was working at the Greater London Council and got the council to support a program of activities which we entitled Greater London Council Lectures, Historical Lectures and Concerts, paying tribute to the contribution of Africans and people of African descent to world civilizations from antiquity to the present, and especially to the development and growth of Europe and the United Kingdom. So it was out of this Black History Month was established. And Black History Month was established primarily to ensure that every child growing up in the United Kingdom and Europe has an understanding and an appreciation of the value of the contributions of Africa, Africans and people of African descent to world civilizations, and especially to the growth and development of the United Kingdom and Europe. That is the objective of Black History Month. And since 1987, it has grown to be an institutional feature of British calendar year of events. So the month of October, the entire month, has become our space in the United Kingdom for us to assess the state of Black Britain and see what we have achieved in the course of the year, the difficulties that we've had, and then reorganize ourselves to tackle the coming year in full sense of our collective unity and responsibility. This is what is happening in the United Kingdom. And I must add that all institutions of state, local governments, educational institutions, the banks, the libraries, the museums, the army and the navy, schools, universities, all are participating in Black History Month during the month of October. So this is what we have achieved in the United Kingdom, creating a space, learning from the experience of Carter G. Woodson in the US and of course in Canada during the month of February. This is what we have achieved. This is a short background of me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc. As we look at the space in Africa, if I say space in Africa right now, a lot is happening. A lot is going on. So many changes are going on. And it seems as if within a space of time, a very short space of time, Africans are looking at themselves as, hey, look, we've arrived. We were there. But not everything seems to have not gone our way. We've been colonized. Now we are sitting back and we are looking at young people taking the reins of administration. I'm talking in terms of young Captain Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso and the others. They have opened up a whole lot of gem box. But today we are going to be looking at Pan-Africanism. And I know you are an astute, without apology, an astute Pan-Africanist. What is Pan-Africanism? Yes, a lot of people use the word tersely and with indifference. But you being an astute Pan-Africanist, what is it? What is it?
Pan-Africanism is us. Pan-Africanism is in response to the problem of colonization, imperialism, and neocolonialism. Pan-Africanism is an expression of rejection of domination and control. Pan-Africanism is an expression of the history of our revolt against colonial penetration and domination. It is a continuum of the struggle to regain our sense of humanity that has been abused. by our sense of humanity. By that, what I mean is that because the human race began with us, we knew our sense of humanity. We embrace everyone so far as you are a human being. And if you needed a place to survive, we'll give you a place to live and survive. If you go to the biblical times, you know that the Israelis were facing pestilence and difficult Iraq. And God pointed them, the 12 tribes, where? To Africa, to Egypt. They came, we received them, we made them fruitful and multiply. But they settled after about 400 years. They integrated. Some rose even to become prime ministers. But then they decided to organize a coup against the reigning pharaoh at that time. But he didn't kill them. He said, pack and go back to where you came from. So he gave them escorts and told them to, and showed them the way for them to cross the Nile and go back. That is who we are. And people abuse our welcome and humanity. And when you have a sense of humanity, it is a strength and also a weakness. So we have suffered because of that weakness. So that is the essence of Pan-Africanism, to retrieve our sense of humanity. That is Pan-Africanism. And it is all summed up by what Nkrumah said on the eve of Ghana's independence at the Polo Grounds, 6 March 1957, when he said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. And the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it's linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. What this meant is that, yes, without unity, whatever you are doing cannot be meaningful. And the current situation of Ghana gives credence to what Nkrumah said. The current situation in Nigeria, in Cote d'Ivoire, in in Zimbabwe, South Africa, and all that gives credence to what Nkrumah said. So much so that at this particular time, none of us can point to any African country that is totally liberated, with the exception now of the sister states of the Sahel, the 3 sister states of the Sahel, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, who are struggling to be free. What I want to say here is this: it is in the interest of Pan-Africanism that the sister states, the 3 sister states of the Sahel, they succeed. It is in the interest of Pan-Africanism that the 3 sister states of the Sahel succeed. It is in our own interest to ensure that they succeed by any means necessary. We have to give them whatever support that we can organize so that they succeed. And please, Haiti should be an example example to us. The situation have to succeed. I don't know how to express it. Last August, I submitted a document to the sister states, and I'll share the preamble with you. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, the future in the present. The problem of Niger is uprooting neocolonialism and not that of transition back to the status quo ante. We, the African people of the sister states, are demanding freedom, justice, decolonization, and development in our own image and interest. No more do we want to be a caricature of France. We, the sister states, are saying no more to assimilation, no more negritude, Francophonie, no more. We will not deny ourselves that human impulse to fight to free ourselves from centuries of dehumanization, appropriation, and exploitation by France and the Quislings so alienated from their African soul. Freedom, I quote, is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. These words of Martin Luther King Jr. ring so true in the ears of every true African. We, the people of the sister states, are freeing ourselves from French dominion in all areas of our national life, including governance, economics, law, politics, education, religion, labor, entertainment, sex, war, and counter-war. There has developed in us a national consensus to purge French influence from our souls. We demand freedom to be who we are as Africans and nothing else. We, the sister states, are echoing the voice of Martin Luther King Jr. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Our fate and future are therefore hanging on the urgency of decolonization and development in our own African image and interest. This must not be denied us, the African people of the sister states of the Sahel, who are reaching deep into themselves and our culture to deconstruct the French order and reconstruct the African order. We, the African people of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, refuse to be dehumanized. We have taken the decision to be free by acts of decolonization. Thomas Sankara enjoined Africans to dare to invent the future. And we, the African people of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, are daring to invent the future in the present. Frantz Fanon bade us that each generation must discover its mission, fulfill it or betray it in relative opacity. We, the African people of the sister states, have discovered our mission, and we shall not betray it. We understand that our freedom is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation and unification of the Sahel and consequently Africa. This is the objective of what is happening in the Sahel. And so the Sahel is a continuation of the Pan-African struggle, which manifested itself in the 18th century. in Haiti. And you recall that it is our own sister, Arikana Chihombori Kwao, who sparked the new phase of the Pan-African struggle. She got the fuse from Haiti and lit it. And this is what we have seen in the Sahel. But please make it our duty to ensure that our sister states succeed, because the French, the Americans, the Germans, the British, the Belgians, the Canadians, Australians, the Israelis, they are not going to sit down and let this succeed. They are doing everything to undermine the three sister states. And they are using their surrogate states like the Bantustan called Ghana, the Bantustan called Nigeria, the Bantustan called Cote d'Ivoire. They are using them to undermine and collapse the collective will of our African brothers and sisters in the three sister states of the Sahel. They are not sleeping. So we should not be sleeping. It is our responsibility to see to it that our sister states in the Sahel, they succeed. And how do we do this? We do this by recalling and understanding what Nkrumah meant by saying that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. So, if Ghana, Nigeria, La Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, and others are resisting, we have a responsibility to make sure that they don't. So their regimes must go. That is our responsibility. We have to act in such a way that the neo-colonial regimes that have become tools and weapons of mass destruction against the people of the three sister states of Sahel, we remove those regimes and we unite our forces with our three sister states of the Sahel. This is the challenge facing us now. This is the way forward for Pan-Africanism if we are rethinking Pan-Africanism today. This is the challenge I put in front of you. The Bantustans of Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, all of these Bantustans, we have to exercise the collective will and power to change the regimes there in our own interest and image. Because for a long time, the imperialists and colonialists changed regimes to suit their own purposes. Now, we have to ensure that regimes that are neo-colonial in nature and character, in the running of the political economy, we have to change these regimes. And our sister states have pointed the way. They have pointed the way. If you act in the collective interest, you have the population behind you. And when the population is behind you, it becomes very difficult for decolonialism to have a footing. And this is what has happened. My brother,
Yeah, Doc.
before I pause,
Go ahead, please.
you made a statement that these young soldiers, young patriots have emerged. No, it's not the first time. Sergeant Doe emerged in Liberia from nowhere. Strasser emerged in Sierra Leone from nowhere. Charles Taylor emerged, a civilian who gathered and challenged at that time the West Africa was governed and run by military generals. And he took up arms and challenged them. And led by Nigeria, they formed a military wing called ECOMOG, supported by US and its NATO allies. And still they could not defeat Charles Taylor. So there is something happening. And whenever that resistance comes out, they gather themselves together to pour cold water on the fire and destroy it. And it has appeared in the Sahel, and for historical reasons too. So it is left to us to respond. And the young ones are responding because the young ones now in anywhere in Africa cannot expect any inspiring political and economic perspectives from my generation. My generation has betrayed Africa. We have betrayed Africa and Pan Africa, my generation. So the young ones cannot wait for us. The young ones cannot expect anything, and they should not expect anything. The only thing that they can expect from us is betrayal, is betrayal, is betrayal, is betrayal. And we should always remember what Dr. Mikhail Cabral said and meant when he said that Nkrumah was not killed by any cancer, but Nkrumah was killed by the cancer of betrayal. That is what has happened. Africa has been killed by the cancer of betrayal. And it is my generation that has held power in Africa from the 1980 to the present. And look at the state of Africa now. Look at my own president, my own age group, my own generation, Akufo-Addo, sitting in front of a secretary of state, not a colleague president, but a secretary of state, and snitching. No. So you can't, the younger generation, anything from my generation, cannot and must not. So let us support the young ones. Because look at Thomas Sankara and what he came to do. Look at Maurice Bishop in Grenada. Huh? So please, let us ensure that the sister states of the Sahel, they succeed. Their success depends on our awareness and our refusal to get the French, the Americans, the Germans, the British, the Israelis, the Australians, the Canadians to have any footing in the Sahel.
Well,
Thank
Doc,
you.
you've put it. Yeah, you've put it. Wow, 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 wow. As usual, you're giving me a lot of things to think about. Um, During you said something about when you were grouping the Bantustans. You made mention of you included South Africa, and it seems South Africa is a little bit puzzling to me. Could you clarify that? Because of what they did with respect to the ICJ bringing Israel to that place. So I'm not so. Could you clarify why you included South Africa?
Oh, South Africa, the land issue has not been settled. Pan Africanism is about land and
Okay.
nothing else. It's about Africa lands in African hands. In the 5th century, the Holy See, that is the Vatican and the Pope, they enacted what they call the doctrine of discovery and gave authority to the monarchs of Europe to go out there and conquer and dominate indigenous societies that are not Christians. That was the beginning of the colonization, then slavery, enslavement, chattel slavery, and all. And this was consolidated in 1884-85 at the Berlin Conference when Africa was partitioned into Bantustans and still remains. This must not be. So South Africa, the issue of land has to be resolved. The issue of land has to be resolved. Sorry, I've had some phone disturbing me. I have to cut them off. Yeah.
Yes, folks,
The
we're
issue
in conversation. Yes, go ahead, please.
the issue of land has to be resolved. The issue of land has to be resolved in South Africa. South Africa, like Nigeria, has very progressive foreign policy. Very, very progressive foreign policy. And that is Pan-African. And what they have done with the ICJ and Palestine, we embrace and salute them, and we are with them. And they understand Israel and apartheid Israel because they have lived with it and they have seen how Israel supported the apartheid regime in South Africa and gave them the nuclear capability to terrorize and control Africa. But we all fought. We set up the frontline states and we fought. We supported South Africa. I supported South Africa. My organization called Tribute Inspirations that I worked for, I was an executive director of. We were the organization that was approached by Archbishop Trevor Huddleston to ensure that Mandela was released released from prison. So we organized those famous concerts at Wembley Stadium that galvanized the world against apartheid and demanded Mandela to be free. The first broadcast, 1988, was broadcast to 110 countries and 500 million people watch it live on television and radio. There has never been any such broadcast. And when Mandela was released, we were again approached and said that we should organize another one for Mandela to show appreciation and thank the world. And we did that again. And over 500 million people were reached across the world. That's what we have contributed. So when I talk about South Africa, I'm talking about what has to be done in terms of the question Toussaint Louverture, Bookman, Dessalines, and all of them. It was because of the land. C. James, George Padmore, Jomo Kenyatta, Sylvester Williams, Wallace Johnson, all these giants of the Pan African movement. It was because of the land, because without land, Pan Africanism is meaningless. That was why they gathered in 1945 in Manchester and to address the question of land. First, their decision was to go and take over Sierra Leone because of the peculiar nature of its settlement. And Wallace Johnson had been prepared to go to start in Sierra Leone. Then fortuitously, a letter came from Ghana, from Akyaaba, that the UGCC needed a secretary, and he had recommended Nkrumah. Nkrumah went and showed this letter to CLR James and George Padmore. They called a meeting, they discussed it, and they told Nkrumah that Wallace Johnson that the program has changed. Now our focus is on Gold Coast. And this is what happened. So in 1947, December, they took Nkrumah on boat to Liverpool, put him on a boat, and sent him to Ghana. He arrived in December 1947, and within 10 years, had organized and mobilized Ghanaians to kick out the British. It's incredible. Incredible. This is us. This is we Africans. Please, you have to take pride in that. And he did not rest there. Between 1957 and 1963, how many years? How many people or states got their independence and gathered at Addis Ababa in May 1963 to form the Organization of African Unity? 30 states added to Ethiopia and Liberia. Huh? This is our achievement. And they tried to derail it in 1966. And the US, Britain, France, Germany, Canada, Australia, South Africa, Israel, and Rhodesia, they all combined their intelligence and security agencies to overthrow Nkrumah. That has been a great watershed for the Pan-African movement. And we have have not recovered since. And we are glad that the Africana spark has lit the fuse in the three sister states. And it is our responsibility to keep the fuse burning. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. We're in conversation with Dr. Addae Sebo. You know what? He's given us a lot to think about. As Africans, people of African descent around the globe, when we talk about Pan-Africanism, it's togetherness, unity, and then making sure that what belongs to us belongs to us. We have to fight for what has been taken away from us. Doc, I have with me a copy of the New African, November 2010. And in it, there was an article written by Clayton Godwin. And he cites, there's a quotation there. Maybe you may be able to help in breaking it down. He says, Pan-Africanism remains an idea of intellectuals, but it is an idea in competition with the lure of nationalism. Could you please break it down for us?
1945 changed it all. 1945 changed it all. The Fifth Pan-African Congress changed it all. And Pan-Africanism arrived from the diaspora to Ghana when in 1958, Nkrumah organized the All African People's Conference in Accra, and all the liberation movements and others came. That signaled that Pan-Africanism had taken a foothold on the motherland. So that quotation is antiquated, it's old. It has no relevance.
That's right.
It changed.
Yeah. And I can see, you know, the reason, I mean, soaking what you're telling me right now is due to the fact that there's an optimism. I mean, I'm so optimistic about the pact that our brothers in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have come about. It means there's something out there that we need to protect, because you know what, Kwame Nkrumah, the doyen of Africa, I would say, sought the same ideals. You know, like I read with Captain Ibrahim Traore saying that you know what, the ideals of Sankara and Nkrumah still dwells in him, and we know that the West is not going to go down quietly, and it behoves on us to guard against the achievement right now. So in your, I mean, from where you sit, which way forward?
The way forward, as I've said, the existence of the Bantustans called Ghana now, the Bantustans that exist in Nigeria under the president, Tinubu, under Akufo-Addo, under Ouattara, these Bantustans are a threat to Pan-Africanism. And it has been demonstrated by no other person than President Akufo-Addo, by sitting in front of a Secretary of State to tell on the sister states. This should not, we should not tolerate this. So far as they exist, they oppose, they are a threat to the survival and the success of the sister states in the Sahel. So the only way forward is for those of us in these sister states to see to it that it is our responsibility to ensure that there exist regimes that will be in synchrony with our sister states as a measure to move on the revolutionary path towards total liberation and unification. What is important that is happening in the Sahel is that they are taking control of their political economy and defining it in their own image and interest, not in the image and interest of the metropolis. In Ghana, we discovered 3 rich deposits of lithium. Then our regime hands over these deposits to an Australian startup company for less than 10% carry-on interest. In 2023, 21st century, and this can happen in a country called Ghana that was one ruled by Nkrumah, that means there's something really wrong. And our brothers and sisters in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are saying, hell no! You will not take our natural resources and human labor for free as you did during the period of chattel slavery. No, no, no. So this is the only way forward for us. We have to understand that so far as the new colonies exist, that is the Bantustans, they pose a threat to the forward march of Pan-Africanism. And this is the rethinking that our intellectuals, our social scientists, psychiatrists, psychologists, all of them, that is what they have to do. This is the rethinking that they have to do and prepare our young ones intellectually to be able to see the future safety and security and defense of Mother Africa in their own hands.
Yeah, Doc, you said something. Yes, you said something about the president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, sitting there. I saw that video and I was very ashamed with respect to that. But that doesn't also take away the fact that when there was the African United States conference in the United States of last year, African leaders were buzzed. They are making like a mockery of the offices that they hold. So it feels like if any other country calls them, it's going to be this country and African leaders, they all go. The recent one was with Italy, just a couple of weeks or about a month ago. And from an inside track that I know, that each country was giving $5 million. So I'm saying this to say that the current crop of leaders are not serving the interest, and they have not served our interests. So it behoves on us as the people of Africa and people of African descent to sit back, have a conversation, a real conversation as to which way forward. And which way forward, from where I sit, is to support progressive groups, both inside and outside of Africa, from the Caribbean to the diaspora and to Africa. And I know that there are a lot of progressive organizations coming up because of what we are seeing right in front of our eyes. The floor is yours. Any comment on that, please?
Yeah, we all have to be concerned about the issue of power. Power has to, power, without power, what can you do? And that is why Nkrumah said, seek ye first the political kingdom. So we have to be concerned about power. Power should not be the privy of a bunch of people who enjoy the support of their colonial masters to be in power. That is why when they summon them, they jump and they run to their metropolis when they summon them,
I like
because
that.
they know who put them there and they know that they can remove them. That is why they go. That is the honest truth. So we have to be aware of this. Our responsibility is home. And we, those of us in the diaspora, we must please learn from what the Nkrumahs, the Padmos, the Wallace Johnsons, and others did. You see, they organized themselves, they came together and laid out a plan. So you should support, but first identifying progressive organizations and movements, link up with them, and support them for them to challenge, to expose, oppose, and depose the likes of Nanado, Ouattara, Tinubu, and others. That is the way forward. They don't represent Africa, and they have never represented Africa. And we should not be afraid. It's regime change. The Americans changed the regime in Congo, removed Lumumba, and got the Belgians, with the assistance of the Ghanaian troops, to capture Lumumba, slaughter him, dissolve his body in drums of acid, and kept his teeth. Such wickedness. And we are not learning anything from this. Why? Historical amnesia? Because these facts are not taught in our schools. Can you believe it? That in Ghana, as I'm speaking to you now, not a single book of Nkrumah is a required text of the national curriculum.
And why is that, Doc? Why is that?
Ghana.
Because it's very shameful to even to hear this because I don't know. Go ahead, please. I'm becoming so
That is the truth. That is the truth. Everything is being done to suppress Nkrumahism in Ghana. And I'm afraid to say that the academia, the intellectuals are playing a strong part by acts of self-censorship. How can a Ghanaian go through 4 years of study, undergraduate study, at any of the universities, particularly the premier university of Ghana, come out with a political science degree, come out with an economics degree, come out with a history degree, and will not have gone through a single book of Nkrumah and graduated? How do you explain this? How do you explain this? In Ghana, so please, those of us in the diaspora, this is the reality. And we have to change it. We have to change it. Nkrumah did not satisfy the interests of the US and Britain. In 1965, in December, President Lyndon Johnson and Prime Minister Harold Wilson decided that Nkrumah had to be gotten rid of. Wilson said that Nkrumah had to be killed, if possible, at the airport. Then Johnson said, no, if it fails, we'll be in trouble. So let him go far away, that if it fails, we will be able to recover ourselves and make sure that it succeeds. So far as he will be far away. That is why they plotted for him to go to Hanoi. And unfortunately, Nkrumah fell for the ploy and they overthrew him. These were the kind of mindset of the people that we behold as the champions of civilization, plotting to kill another head of state in order that they will pursue their interest. So where is our interest? We who are in the Pan Africa and we call ourselves Pan Africanists and all that. What is our interest when you have these Bantustans, these colonized states? What is our interest? What is our interest? They act in their own perceived interest to see that regimes change in their favor. Sankara was preyed on by the French and the Americans to get Campari, to betray him and kill him. And when mass upheaval started to build up in Burkina Faso, demanding his removal, quickly Ouattara nationalized him and gave him the citizenship of Cote d'Ivoire. Then he slipped to Cote d'Ivoire as a citizen, and now he's in Cote d'Ivoire. What is all this? What is all this? What is this teaching you and I as Pan-Africanists? What Why can't we act in our own interest and in image? They change regimes to satisfy their perceived national interests and security interests. Why can't we also organize ourselves to change regimes in our own Pan-African interests? That is the challenge facing us now in rethinking Pan-Africanism and the way forward. That is the challenge facing you and I. But I will end by saying that you cannot rely on me or my generation because we will betray you. Our whole makeup is about betrayal. Nothing else. Nothing else. With any single trust because we will betray you. Look at this. The president who was kicked away in Burkina Faso, no, in Niger, he had the use of his telephone and he called Biden and said Biden should do everything to come and rescue him. Why? Because they share the same values. My goodness, what more treasonable act than to say a head of state of a sovereign African country saying that you share the same value, United States of America, so they should come and rescue you? What does this tell us? These people we put on as our heads of states. No. In Ghana, President Akufo-Addo takes pride in saying that he's a Francophone and share the same values with Macron. So, to please the French, he has decreed and made French the second lingua franca in Ghana after English. And not to be outdone, his vice president, who is now seeking to be the president, Baumia, who is a Muslim, also says that Arabic should be taught in Ghanaian schools. So he is promoting Arabic as a lingua franca in Ghanaian schools. What is wrong with us? And he is seeking to be president, just like Ouattara, an agent of the Bretton Woods, IMF and World Bank, exactly a replica of Ouattara that Ghana is waiting for to replace Akufo-Addo. This is our sad situation. This is our sad situation. And those of us in the diaspora, we should please study, discuss, and think over what led the Nkrumahs, Padmos, CLR James, Wallace Johnsons, McConnens, Moodleys, Kenyatas, and others to gather first in London and move to Manchester in 1945. That is what you should be doing.
Yeah,
the liberation of Africa rests on your shoulders and your organization. Thank you.
Doc, thank you for this. I have a last question for you, and the question is that we are discussing. I mean, you talk about the Francophonie, and in general sense, what is ailing Africa? Do you think that African countries should leave Francophonie and the Commonwealth organizations?
Well, what has been their relevance to us?
Precisely.
You see, now you see what is happening. The foreign minister who sat by Nanado, sitting in front of his counterparts, the Secretary of State of the United States, to snitch on the sister states of the Sahel, Shirley Boche is seeking to be the next Secretary General of the Commonwealth Secretariat. And the President of Ghana has given his blessings to her. And I just heard that Grenada is supporting Ghana's nomination. So Nkrumah and Nyerere showed the way in 1965 when they took them, Tanzania and Ghana, out of the Commonwealth. Nkrumah said that the Commonwealth is an anachronism. And that is what it is. It is an anachronism. We cannot belong. We are there only to make the British crown look good. That's all. It is the nostalgia of imperialist feelings. It has no meaning to us. Can't sustain it. We do that to serve the lost imperial that they feel. That's all. It's a nostalgia. And we should not support these organizations. And this is the message of Dr. Arikana and Patrice Lumumba, Professor Lumumba. This is their message. We must be bold and decolonize. We must be bold and decolonize. We must listen to Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He's been crying and crying and crying and crying all these years, a lonely voice. He had Bob Marley singing alongside him, but Marley is gone. So we should hearken to the call of Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Arikana, Chiromboro, Kwao, and Patrice Lumumba and others. We must listen and hearken to their call. We must decolonize. We must decolonize because, please, what is colonialism? Colonialism is nothing else but an act of corruption. It's an act of corruption. For colonialism to succeed, it has to corrupt every aspect of indigenous life, religious life, spiritual life, language, culture. Everything is not worth. What did Trump say? Something whole. Huh? So please, that is what colonialism is. It's a dehumanizing act. It strips off of who you are in order to succeed. So in order to humanize ourselves, we have to consciously decolonize for Africa to develop in Africa's own image and interests. Africa has to decolonize in all aspects of our national life. We have to purge ourselves of Judeo-Christian and Islamic values and systems that keep dehumanizing us. Otherwise, we will remain a caricature of this should not be. We have to decolonize. That is the challenge facing us all, and particularly those of us in the diaspora, in the belly of Babylon, who are exposed to these white supremacists and their actions, and we have a responsibility to expose our brothers and sisters on the continent who will say that if you are going to look for Jesus Christ and you don't find Jesus Christ and you see a white man coming, you take that person. Look, can you imagine how the Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, are spreading in Africa, particularly in West Africa and in Ghana? When you travel along all the villages and districts, you see their temples rising up all over the place. And they flood the country with teenagers in their black and white attire and ties, indoctrinating our young ones. And we allow this to go on. This is what we are faced with. Please,
Doc.
we have to decolonize in order to develop in our own image and interest. Please listen carefully to what I'm saying. For us to develop in our own image and interest, we have to first decolonize. This is the whole thesis of Nkrumah's conscientism. And you dare not mention conscientism in Ghana. It scares the hell out of Akufo-Addo and the rest. You dare not mention it. The Americans, they don't want it mentioned. The British, they don't want it mentioned. The Germans and the French, they don't want conscientism mentioned. They are afraid of conscientism. So we have the handbook of liberation in our hands, conscientism. And the practical aspect of it is a handbook of revolutionary warfare. Handbook of revolutionary warfare. Handbook of revolutionary warfare. Handbook of revolutionary warfare. And added to this, the class struggle in Africa. We have all this that has Nkrumah has put before us. So please, Nkrumahism is the weapon of neo-colonial destruction. That is what Nkrumahism is. It is a weapon of neo-colonial destruction.
And on that note, Doc, You have taken us through a lot of things that most of us take for granted. And in light of that, I also encourage a lot of people. Somebody was telling me Black people don't like to read. Well, I would say yes and no, but then it's the Black History Month, and it ties in with learning our history, our geography, our customs, our traditions, our cultures, wherever we are or wherever we may be. It's a Black History Day today. It will be a Black History Month at the end of the shortest month of the year, where we celebrate Black history. And Black history cannot be celebrated within 1 month. February being the shortest month of the year. But at least it signifies the fact that we are there. We haven't moved anywhere. We haven't gone anywhere. But then Pan Africanism, from what we've heard from Dr. Akyaaba Addae Sebo this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever we may be, the conversation has got to continue because we cannot let it go. You see, a wounded tiger is more dangerous than anything else. Today, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali are extricating themselves one way or the other from the tentacles of colonialism. And it's up to us. We know that. Sometimes we make noise, but we don't follow it up. Africa has power, but we don't know how to use it. We are tying this in to the fact that colonialism continues to exist. We are being suppressed, depressed, what have you. Even at the United Nations, at the Security Council, a continent of about 1.23 billion people doesn't have a seat. This should tell us that the time has come for Africans and Africa to sit back and say whether we want to belong to these organizations. But because at the end of the day, God has given us anything and everything that we need to survive as a people. Sun, human resources, natural resources, everything has been given to us. So if we don't come together and extricate ourselves from mental slavery, physical slavery, and what have you, and we continuously elect leaders who are corrupt and who are leading us astray and who are being caricatures of themselves when they go outside of the countries, then it means the youth of Africa should wake up, and then not by any violent means or something, but we have to sit back and say that enough is enough. We are not going to travel across the Mediterranean to go and die horrible deaths. Because of the lack of leadership, this is where we are right now. Africa is in leadership crisis. We always talk about it every time we come on here to talk about it and to speak about it and what we do about it. And from Dr. Akyaaba Addae Sebo, we have to sit back and change those regimes. That doesn't, represent our interests. Doc, what do you have in a minute to tell our listeners how they can get hold of you and also how they can get in touch with you? The floor is your space. Thank you.
Well, they can get hold of me through you. You can pass on my details to anyone who wants to contact me. That will be fine. I am very disappointed with my generation. My generation that had the best that the Nkrumah generation could offer to their children. They sent us to the best universities around the world, ensured that when we returned, there was a job for us, there was a house for us, there was a car for us, there was a sense of social security for us. We enjoyed this. Then it came our turn to rule from the 1980s to the present. We exercised absolute power. We became the darling of the World Bank and the IMF, of the Paris Club. They poured money on us. And look at our situation now. We failed. Can you believe it? In 2024, February, as I speak to you, there are communities in Ghana that take their water for food, for bath, for everything, from ponds that they share with cows, with lions, with pigs, with sheep, with chicken, with turkeys. Can you believe that? This exists. And we have communities drinking mad as a result of irresponsible mining that has destroyed our water bodies. In 2024 February, children go to schools under trees. And we have our president travel in private jets and his handlers ensure that these private jets are equipped with a shower so that the president can have a shower in the air. What is all this? This is happening in Ghana. So I'm ashamed of my generation. The younger generation, oh my goodness, they should be whipping us. They should be whipping us and driving us away because we don't deserve to be calling ourselves leaders of these Bantustan states. I feel ashamed and I apologize to the young ones because we have failed you. We have failed you. And your brothers and sisters who are forced to take the risk of crossing the desert to cross the Mediterranean and for some of them to drown in the Mediterranean Sea. I apologize. It's because of my misrule that has allowed this shame to hit Africa. I apologize sincerely for my role in allowing this to happen. As I keep saying, a society is on the verge of collapse when the vast majority of the youth wake up in the morning with nothing to look forward to. And this is what led the young soldiers in the sister Sahel states of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger to take action because they saw their societies collapsing right in front of them. So they saw it as their responsibility to effect a regime change in the collective interest of the proud and pride African people of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Thank you very much.
And thank
Please
you.
accept
Thank
my
you.
apologies.
Yes. Well, Dr. Akyaaba Addae Sebo, we cannot thank you enough. Anytime you've been here, you've sort of educated us with your knowledge and expertise where Africa is concerned, nationalism, Pan Africanism, what have you. Because you know what? At the end of the day, Africa was born in us and we are born in Africa. We cannot change it. It's not negotiable. But I will always say that we always have to come out and tell our stories because we have allowed people to define us. And if we don't tell our stories and we allow people to tell the stories for us, it becomes their story or his story. And we know what history has done to us. And we have to reverse that. And on behalf of myself, Tiwi Abuachi, and the management and staff at Lovely Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, we'd like to thank Dr. Addae Sebo for taking time of his busy schedule to be with us. We hope he will join us again at another future date. And I know he always comes through for us and with us. And to that, we thank you very much, sir. This radio station appreciates you very much. And to the folks out there, thank you for listening and thank you for your time and space that you've allotted to us this morning. Thank you. We'll see you again next week. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.